Hello everyone, this is the Indosport podcast and we are coming to you from Langton's Hotel in Kilkenny, famous of course for Kilkenny down the years. And we're previewing the Hurling Championship which gets underway this weekend. And so we brought together Michael Verney from the paper, Eddie Brennan and John Milan. The three boys often feature on the Indo GAA podcast feed as well. And we said, let's get together and preview the championship. So we did that. Sit back, enjoy. They're all in great form. And as ever, our GAA podcast on Indosport is with thanks to AIB. They are at the heart of Gaelic games across both club and county. In 2025, they're celebrating a decade of sponsoring the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. And with this year's championship shaping up to be the most competitive in years, AIB more excited than ever to bring fans closer to the action. You can check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. Without further ado, from Langton's, John Milan, Eddie Brennan, Michael Verney. So if you're watching on video, you're very welcome. If you're just listening, we look like a combination of a top table at a wedding and a press conference. Eddie Brennan, thanks for having us in Kilkenny.
Yeah, you're more than welcome, Joe.
Michael Verney, hello.
Good, Joe. And nice to be here. Eddie's the manager. I'm the captain, I think, am I?
And John Milan, best man.
Yeah, Jesus, the venue, it's a setting for weddings, all right.
It's beautiful.
Married at first sight, we should call it, Joe, you know?
We said we had to do this in person, so here we are. There was some talk of doing it in a cell, but you organised Langton's.
Yeah, they were full. So, yeah, look, a lot of, I suppose, good memories here because we used to always get our food here after training. And it was something that, you know, Brian was very strong about, that the group came in and kind of had a bit of grub together and a bit of sneer. And yeah, some very good, funny memories. Even one I thought of earlier was back in 2006, I think. With a couple of young, you know, the 21s moved in, but you had Cha Fitz, John Tennyson and Austin Murphy. So you had Cha C, Austin A and 10OT. So Cat Painters was formed that year. And the boys were on the go doing a bit of painting around. And I remember one evening, we were just inside having the grub and the kind of row erupted, I think, as maybe Cha came in the door after painting Cha's sister's house down in Wexford. And whoever was in the ensuite never opened the door and painted the ensuite part of the room. So the boys were arguing, and this was entertainment for us. It was like, Cha was like, it's coming out of your wages now, that's it, 10 You're not going to be paid for that work. So just, I suppose, silly stuff, but stuff that I think is what probably entertained a lot of us, but it was just the crack in the group. And I think anyone that has ever been part of a group, you know, there's obviously the performance side of things and hurling and whatever, soccer.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely the characters behind it. And, you know, we were lucky with a couple of good lads like that. And the same too, many's a good night in this place as well. If these walls could talk.
Be a few lives ruined, I'd say. Because I wasn't sure if you just kind of came here around big days or matches, but it was every night after training. Three-course meal.
Yeah, like, every night after training.
What if the boys not even getting soup, I'd say, after training some of those years?
Sandwiches, Joe, that's all we're getting, sandwiches.
Yeah, no, it was funny.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And, you know, Eamon Langton, I suppose, a huge part of Kilkenny through the years. Like, I mean, the hotel and the complex here is run a long, long time and very good. And Eamon used to accompany us home an odd Monday on the train as well. He was brilliant fun to be around, but very good to us and very good to Kilkenny GAA over the years. But yeah, no, it was brilliant. Yeah. I think a lot of your colleagues in the media used to love coming down here for the media day. They were getting the best of grub inside, and
the steak was, you always got a steak.
Yeah,
the first night. Presume you got that every night, did you?
Yeah, but in fairness, if you wanted it was there. Like you had a good pull on the menu, so it was great. And I think it came to an abrupt halt one year when kind of Tommy let it slip. I think that there was chicken goujons, or it was a salad, but it was actually chicken goujons and
with a bit of lettuce on the side.
A bit of lettuce there on the side, and I think the dietitian got a hold of it, and there was no more chicken goujons after that. Little disclosure. So, but no, it was brilliant. It was, and like I said, it was good fun.
Hey, just what you're saying there, Eddie, even, and Mull, you would have been the same. Sure, the crack for the meal after training, the dressing rooms, even the showers, and that. Sure, that's half the crack of it being involved, isn't it?
It's very, very important, like, you know what I mean? And that's where all the banter, and, you know, that's where the, you know, the memories and, you know, the goodwill amongst the group, and, you know, as you always touch on, Cody always touched on, the spirit within a group kind of grows, and I think it's very important, and it's probably something that's probably, we just touched on it just before we came in here, it's probably diluted a small bit, you know, in after the COVID years. You probably see it at club level as well. Like, you know, lads probably, you know, don't go into the dressing rooms as much. Probably, you know, probably don't go into the shower areas as much, and that's where the banter and all the crack has had. Well, we've had over the years, and even the trips away, going away for weekends away, or the training camps leading into a championship, and if you can get away or get out for a night then and have a couple of pints, and have a bit of crack, it adds to the whole thing, and you can bring that in on match days as well, because if there's one or two quiet lads that mightn't put themselves out there as much, on nights out, if they get one or two drinks into them,
more than one or two.
You see some characters, like, they could be quiet within themselves, and next thing, as I said, they get one or two drinks in them, they become a different person, and that's how relationships grow. Like,
Bernie was just reminding you, and you had a blank face, but I could see the wheels were turning. Jesus, if that's true, that you were in Brian Cody's ear singing "There's only one Brian Cody" on an All-Star trip before.
Jeez, I can't.
I'd say by the end of the podcast you'll have remembered it all. But I was reliably informed by a former teammate of yours who'll remain nameless that you did that.
But to be fair to Cody, I think on those trips away, he knew, like, there was the win inside the Cody, and getting over the line and winning for Kilkenny and winning All Irelands, but he was probably one of the most lads that would put himself out there and would have the laugh and the crack, and he'd know when to have the laugh and the crack as well.
Remember, even Arizona, it was the first trip I went on, and we had the match, but on that trip it was myself, Henry, Derek, and Dougal, John Hine. There was the 6E was Flinners, Fergal, Ken, Kelly, you and Tony, and we ended up with the boys we more or less went everywhere for a few days with Vegas and Arizona, but we went and played the match anyway, and sure, had a good couple of nights before that, but all I remember was a half time. I think Sir Lyons from Clare was the manager, and pulled in a half time, and Owen Kelly was gone cracked. He had scored 3-9 in the first half, and the boys arrived on. I think Brian and Cyril arrived on with the bottles of Lucozade, and I can still hear Ken McGrath going, "Go away with your Lucozade, boys. Kelly's on Bud Light." He's after scoring 3-9 from play. So, but it was, and that's what the All-Star trip is about. And even on holidays, I have to say, over the years, any holidays we were on, Brian never really was looking over your shoulder. He'd let the players enjoy themselves. And, he felt that was a hugely important piece. And even having characters around the team, my own teammate, clubmate John Hine, Dougal, was a devil for, like, he'd be doing the stretch, and the next thing, it'd be clap of thunder go off, like, and it was hilarious, like, okay, big ripper of a fart, like, whatever, but silly little things. And do you know what I mean? There's still, as John said, it's everyday things. It's everyone being themselves, and just having those characters around can lighten the mood at times, because it can get very serious.
Of course it can, yeah.
But obviously, the performance side then has to be separated. And if you have that nice balance between lads being themselves and being very comfortable in the environment, sure, that's one of the big pluses, or that's the big targets for sports psychology, is that you have an environment that lads can go and enjoy themselves and perform then to their max.
And so, on a serious note, if they were having steak and goujons and Langtons, what was the setup in Waterford? Do you have a nice hotel that you went to after training every night?
We went to, we just a train down in Aglish. We used to go back to Elephant's Bar back in, this was back in 2001, 2002. But, geez, a cold winter's night down in Aglish. Oh my God. I remember I came on, Tom Feeney, he was dropped by Justin back in, I think it was 2-3, and he was, ball-headed getting back into the team, like, and anyone who came in his way was getting it in training, like, and I remember, Jesus, could be -5, -4 down in Aglish, pitch dark, January, February. I remember Owen McGrath was going forward one night with the ball, and Tom just let fly, size 36, right across there. And I was and Mac, to be fair to him, jumped up. Next thing I was kind of like, oh, gee. And next thing, sorry, Mac, had to do it, And next thing, I was going forward as well, and I got it then as well. But but in the immediate aftermath, then you go back. Went back to the pub after the Elephants, got the soup and sandwiches. But then
no steak.
That's where you'd sit down then, and you'd have you'd have the bit of the chat or whatever,
yeah.
and even Tom would come over and say, "Jesus, Mull, Mac, sorry about that," and you just you'd accept it, like.
Yeah.
But obviously that all changed then. I suppose from the mid noughties on. I suppose the meals then kind of changed and we were well looked after. And to be fair to the Cork lads, I've gone on the record of saying that like,
Definitely, yeah.
we probably wouldn't have, gotten what we got back in the mid noughties or even pushing on in the immediate aftermath of that, or even what the players have today, Joe.
Yeah,
I mean, they wouldn't have half the stuff they have today.
It's no thanks to the Stepford wives over here. They were happy out. They were grand.
Well, they were getting their steak, like,
Yeah.
they were getting well looked after, so they didn't need to be given out,
It's
was
funny.
it, yeah.
I was just got the tail end or the start of remember Jordan Clan came out with the great bellies and arses after the only county squad the bellies and arses, and there was a reason for that. Like, we were getting desserts after training, like desserts, and it was a great one night. We were in Bannerter one night and we were getting steaks, and someone, I think it might have been Brian Carroll, was getting physio and he was laid down and he came down and the team secretary was getting stuck into the last steak and his steak was gone. So he might have even had a dessert, I think, for his post-match meal or whatever, but in different times, yeah. Just one thing I want to come back to as well on Cody. I'll never forget Brendan Murphy saying he was on an all-star trip and he was worse for wear, shall we say, the morning of the game, and he just said, Cody threw him a look in the lobby. And I said that was that. And it's just
Funny story. You're on about food in the immediate after the train. Remember Davey came in 08 and we must have trained for about 25 nights out of about 30.
Jeez.
And we were all we were eating is that rabbit food, rice and chicken or whatever. Or, we were getting, and the portions were kind of small. And I remember we were out in the Ramada. I think I'd say we were into about day 22 or 23 of the training nights. And Flinner, and it was so funny. Remember Flinner, we were all kind of getting annoyed, like, we were falling away to nothing, like, you know what I mean? And meanwhile, the Kilkenny boys were eating their steak, so we were out to Annie, and I think Flinner ordered a few chips to the waitress that was bringing out what you call a few chips or whatever, like, you know what I mean? And one came out with the chips and goujons or whatever, and didn't lo and behold, Davey got wind of it, and he went nuts, and he said no. He stopped it, Annie, and next thing the chicken and the rice came out, Annie, and next thing Davey's young lad, Colin at the time, he pipes up to Flinner and he goes, "Hey, Flinner, the good times are over, kid."
oh boys.
And I could see Flinner, he's kind of going, "Oh, Jesus,"
Just when Mull was talking there, it was like, day 24 in the Big Brother house. John is feeling hungry.
Stop.
It did you no harm, though.
There's no harm in the All-Ireland final. We got hammered.
We'd steak and goujons for breakfast that morning.
Well, okay, so that's Langton's and food covered off. We're here to kind of kick off the championship preview, and so I wanted to ask the three of you, is hurling in a great place? Like, we'll get on to the championship and the Munster round robin, and that's all seems to be just flying, but the game that you're watching, on an average 70 minutes, average inter-county game, average league game, I mean, anything from the tactics, the types of players that are to the fore, the types of scores that we're seeing or the types of scores we're not seeing, the way it's being reffed, the physicality, you mix it all together. You sit down and watch a hurling match now. Is it as good as ever, or are there parts of it you don't love? Where's the game?
Well, I've the luxury of, when you're up in the gantry and doing the radio, and you can kind of scan it and see the game from kind of a whole different lens. And for the luxury of doing it for the last 10, 12 years, and for me, I think it's at an all-time high in regards skill level, speed, strength. The way some of these players are, some of these players now are nearly able to talk to a ball. Tactically, I just think it's gone on to totally different level as well. I suppose you look at it, you know, we had the conventional 15 on 15, like of our team, Eddie's team, and you know, you played off the cuff hurling. Then the sweeper came in, and now it's a case now where teams now can, you know, navigate their way around the match and play it any way you want. You know, you look at Cork, they've gone back to the old style now, 3 inside, and it's throwing it back to teams now. Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to put an extra body back there? Are you going to push out? Are you going to leave the 3 inside? Or if you don't leave 3, is the half back line going to sit in front of the full forward line? So now look, at this moment of time going into the championship, probably Cork are probably the team on everyone's lips. And teams are looking on now saying, well, how are we going to take on Cork? Cork have found a way now to kind of to go and take on Limerick. And a big part of that is with the 3, their starting positions right in on the line.
It's an amazing the way it goes back to the future, like.
You know, so now Cork have thrown it back to the other teams. Now other teams are looking on saying, well, how are we going to take on, or how are we going to take down this Cork team? Do we go with an extra body at the back, or do we sit our half back line back deep? But Cork have, in my opinion, Cork have an answer to every outcome that's going to be thrown at them. If they go with an extra sweeper, they'll play the ball around the back. If there's a deep line, half back line, they'll just push their half forward line out. If the half forward line push out, they'll play the quick ball into the 3 inside. But you look at Cork, Limerick now. I mean, and from when we finished up, Eddie, I mean, I would have looked at that Kilkenny team as the greatest team of all time. You know, you look at the skill set, you look at the strength of these lads. I mean, I was down pitch side for the only thing for League Sunday there 2 weeks ago for the league final, and the Cork boys were actually running out into the pitch, and in the space of 2 years, as we keep banging on the drum in the pod, you know, they've really honed in on the strength and conditioning side of it, and in the space of 2 years, how big these Cork lads are after getting, the speed of them, the skill of them. And for me, I think they've the all round package. But you know, even outside of Cork, you know, the standard has just gone through the roof, in my opinion. Anyway, you know,
for me, I think a lot of that is, there was a time we played hurling when you had to think on your wits. You had to think very, very quickly. It was kind of very much instinctive hurling, and the fitness side of it was building. The current levels are absolutely off the charts. Like, the physical conditioning of hurlers nowadays is just ridiculous. But for me, the big difference now is, and Limerick have probably changed that, is that through coaching and Paul Kinnerk, they've armed the players with that ball retention is the big thing now. Or it became a very big thing, and it was minding the ball and picking your passes when it was right. It was the combination of movement. So you now had a situation where if we were still playing, you'd be following your man up and down the pitch, because wing-backs, cornerbacks, they're all bombing up the pitch. They're all trying to create that +1 that allows a shot to be got off. So in that sense, I think we had a time when it was we loved it because it was ball landed in between me and Mick. It was best man win, and if you were lucky enough 2 or 3 more come in, he might get 1 or 2. Do you know, it was that individual kind of battle. Whereas now with the tactical side of it, I would say players nowadays spend a nice bit of time discussing the RRR, what you just said there about the options. Like, if the team set up this way, this is what we're going to do. And you're kind of, the big input for me from a coaching point of view is, you're saying to the guys, you have to stick with the system, lads. You have to stick with what we're doing. And then what Limerick brought as well to that was, if it's not working this way, we're going to adjust to this way. And we were able to move to different phases or facets of play. We're able to change up the game mid. You know, we talked about the famous water breaks. They were, you know, a great platform to reassess what's going on, get a little fix in there. And that's the way I see it now, is that teams are able to play different stages of the matches with different setups. And based on what the opposition do, they will adjust. So it's very much, what are they doing? What are we trying to do? And you're trying to strong arm the opposition to play the game on your terms.
And does that make it a great watch as well for the fan?
Overall, I think it is a good watch when, I suppose, we're very much deep rooted in the game and wanting to know what's happening. You want to know these little coaching nuggets that you can bring with you. Is there something there I can take? But I think from the point of view, would I like to play that kind of game? Yeah, myself and John just even said it coming in. There's parts of me, yeah, I'd love to play that. Would you love to be in the position that Galan kind of plays now, where the boys will look for that space? Now, again, you're talking about a guy who is just on top of his game the last couple of years. I still can't get over how he didn't get an All-Star last year.
But going back to it, how these players are able to adjust or adapt to whatever's been thrown at them. Like, you go back to the 2012 Leinster final when Galway, you know, the first half, they hit you for scores after scores and scores, and I'm sure you were kind of, you know, bamboozled. Well, how are they actually doing this? But before you were able to get in at half time and say, you know, kind of gather your thoughts together and say, well, how are we going to counteract this?
Yeah.
You know, and by the time the All-Ireland final came around, you were able to counteract that. I think Damien Hayes came out as the third midfielder. But these lads are so quick that they're able to adjust and adapt. That if there's a problem thrown at them, they're able to adjust or adapt within the space of 5-10 minutes.
I think that's the big piece now, is that there's no longer kind of going on the pitch and just hurl your patch, and obviously with a view to communicating that around. But the communication side of it and the players having those little small chats on the pitch or kind of calling out what's happening, that's become a big thing now. I think if you're it's a real thinking man's game now. You can't just go here, bear in the square, lob it into me and I'll deal with it. You very much have to say, well, they're getting a platform out of, just say, for example, the Diarmuid Burns dropping into kind of the second corner back and that 4 across the full back line. You have to kind of, there was a while that caught everybody and it has brought Limerick to where it brought him. Now the rest are adjusting. Like any good team, like any sport, you'll adjust eventually. But I suppose that's the thing. You no longer can get away with me and you and Mick inside in the full back line and full forward line, and whatever comes in we'll deal with it, and then sure, right boys, keep it into us. And it's not. You have to very much, you're not even getting to admire that pint going over anymore. You have to be resetting very quickly. And I suppose that's where it is. It's ultra concentration. And I remember, you know, Niall Corcoran saying one time, he said, like, you should be probably more mentally fatigued than physically fatigued from playing the game, because you just can't switch off now. You switch off and your team could get hit for a point or a goal, and you see, and to me that was the big quality Limerick had. They were able to go straight away. They didn't care what just happened. Yeah. They went straight away, and you're seeing an evolution of that now.
Michael, are you so we would take it as read, everything the lad said, in terms of how impressive it is, better than ever. In terms of a watch, I think in the main people love what they're seeing. People don't love when teams stand off Limerick and they score 35 points and it's a procession. People didn't love the sweeper when it first came in. Maybe that's kind of calmed down a little bit now. Some people want too many scores would be a complaint. Some people have, like, what are we knocking over points from our own half for too easily? The days of like when a score from halfway was a big moment are not what they were. Like, there'll always be complaints about a game. On the whole, are you thumbs up? It's as good as ever, better than ever?
Yeah, the gripes are very small ones, to be honest with you. It's probably the hand pass and it's not been policed enough. It's probably consistency and maybe head-high tackles. But as these are relatively small things in the grand scheme of things. Like, I think back to last year and I think Cork and Clare played two absolute epics. One in Munster, one in the All-Ireland final. Cork and Limerick played two of the greatest games of all time as well. And that's just 4 off the top of my head. Look at even Carlow and Kilkenny last year. You know, from your point of view, Ned, it probably wasn't great, but from a Carlow point of view, it was probably one of the best results in their history. There's small little gripes. It's not like the gripes people had with football, where it was unwatchable. Like, even an average game of hurling is still a very, very good watch. Now, I still prefer the arm wrestle. I still prefer the probably 119, 118 game, not the 129 to 224 or something like that. That's why, like, even, remember Ned, you were beaten in 05, 519 to 419, was it, or something like, or 518 to 418? And Cork and Clare played the week before and it was 16-15. I was like, forget about that 9-goal thriller. This was the game.
I was working at that and it was a great game to watch.
Brilliant
because
game.
I think Clare were 4 or 5 up.
Yeah.
And it, you know, Cork pulled it out of the bag. It was a great game to watch.
That to me now, it's a middle ground between the real high scoring stuff and the low scoring stuff is the perfect game. And just in something the lads were saying about Limerick, I've said it to the two boys like numerous times on pods. Like, Eddie's played in games and John has played in games and I've played in them as well, where you're just hit with something and you're kind of shell shocked and it's the final whistle before you get to, you know, adapt and go again 3 weeks' time. But the biggest thing and the best compliment I could play Limerick is that they get hit with this whirlwind and somehow they're able to go in at half time and regroup. Like, I'm thinking back to the Tip Munster final in 21. Like, you're not supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's like a boxer, he comes out and gets the head thumped off in the 4th round or in the first 4 rounds. It's hard to adapt and overcome. Limerick are able to take every punch and solve it, whether that's great coaching from Connacht and Alan Cunningham and these boys, or it's probably that they've coached the players to a level where they're able to problem solve on the pitch.
And what do you put that down to? Like, is there a period within a training session now that's kind of sort of 15, 20 minutes where we're going to work on that? Because
I'd say it's players having to
Constant,
discover and see, and not been spoon-fed things, to be honest with you. Because if you spoon-feed people things, some people will take it in, but the vast majority won't. Limerick are obviously discovering and learning as they go along, because otherwise, like, how do you adapt in the middle of Croke Park, or how do you adapt in the middle of Thurles, unless you're able to think for yourself most of the time? You know what I mean?
I think that's it, because sometimes the ultimate systems failure from a coaching perspective or anyone is if you are in the middle of a whirlwind or an avalanche and the players are looking out at you and they're shrugging their shoulders, you're in trouble. Yeah. Whereas being able to, and so it's like, what was it, Tiger Woods saying, train hard, play easy. So in some ways, if you don't prepare, and it was, before Paul Connacht ever came on the horizon, it was Brian's core philosophy was we experience everything in training that we're going to experience. So when you get out in the match, you're not shocked. It's like that ultimate, I often give the example of, you cruise to a ball and just you're putting your hurl to it, bang, you're just knocked flying and you're kind of sitting there on the ground, you're going, oh, it's a match.
Yeah.
Do and that's where you're in trouble. So if you train that way, and obviously we'd all love to know what way it is, because Connacht has definitely brought something different to it, and others are looking at that and saying, which has always been the way, which is always, who are the market leaders, what are they doing, trying to get little nuggets of information and then go on from there. But I think one of the big things with Connacht is that the players themselves have to kind of problem solve. So it's the ultimate coaching if you're giving them scenarios and problems in training and seeing how they get on, and then jump in, spot and fix, and away you go.
Is there a great curiosity in the game over what Connacht's doing? Is he there's like a mythical quality almost?
There is. But
he's the best coach in the country, is he?
The thing about it is, Joe, as well, is that we could all probably go down and watch a training session. But I remember chatting to Donal O'Grady, who was a selector under Kiley for years, and they had a train in the Gaelic grounds, and there was 2 boys up the back of the stand, and they were looking at it, and Kiley was kind of looking around and was like who are these lads or whatever, and someone went up to them anyway, and they were moved on after a few minutes or whatever, but Kiley was just saying after, sure, we barely understand what's going on here. Them 2 boys are hardly going to understand what's going on here. Do you know what I mean? There's no big secrets. That's the thing about Connacht, is that I think you'd want to be at 10 or 15 sessions to realise what's actually going on. It's not just a drill or a game situation. There's all bigger pictures that's going on, and he's obviously an incredibly intelligent fella as well.
I think the biggest thing is we all hear, I think the word process has become a kind of an ick with us all. You kind of go, oh, don't give me that. But there is a process in terms of keeping your emotions in check, and that's very hard when you are in the middle of a cauldron like that and the game is slipping away from you. You take again that example of that Munster final with Tip the year, like they were hit with everything that day. Probably didn't. You always try to anticipate. You look at the opposition and say, what are they going to bring? They probably didn't expect a couple of bombs straight down the middle on top of Hannon and the boys, and next thing there's Tip lads running everywhere. Someone breaks the ball and away we are. We have 2 goals out of it. And that put them thinking. But I suppose it's the emotional side of it, because it's your head will beat you more than your hurling and all that. So it's how you I suppose treat what's happening in front of you. And Limerick seem to have been able to, I suppose, accept that what has just happened is gone, and all we can influence is what's going to happen next. And they stay very much playing one play at a time.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing to achieve. But to get the lads to buy into that, that's probably why they have been able to stay the course and grind out matches that they looked dead and buried in.
It'll be fascinating this year looking on what's he going to come up with, particularly when they come up against Cork, going off of last year's 2 defeats, Cork, the last 2 occasions, have caught Limerick out, by mixing it up, not going down one side, avoiding Kyle Hayes, bombing ball down the, right down the centre. So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to going into this championship, particularly when Cork and Limerick come across each other.
And look
what he's going to come up with.
Well, looking at the market, so Cork are favourites for the All Ireland at the moment. They're 7-5. Limerick are 9-5. Not much between them, and then a bit of a gap out to Kilkenny, 6-7-1. Clare 9-1. Galway Tip a bit further out. Do you all see it as a 2-horse race? Is this Cork v Limerick for the Liam McCarthy?
Well, right here, right now, coming over, I suppose the question mark is around Limerick and what Limerick is going to pitch up. And we're intrigued with that because they've been nice and quiet. I think regardless to what went on here, there's no way they went and they wanted to play kind of possum with Kilkenny today here. No way. But would John Kiley have rathered playing 5 weeks of training to get themselves ready, go off and stay nice and quiet, let's get our house in order and roll something. He didn't want to be probably facing into Tipperary because, there's always, whatever comes and goes with a match previously, I still think it would have been probably not the situation for Limerick to roll into, would be to go along and beat Tipperary in the league final, knowing that they're going to Thurles in 2 weeks' time. Because if ever there's an opportunity to pull the rug from under a team, well, there's where you do it. So they can land into that nice and fresh and take Tip on a one-on-one and go for it. But I suppose the big one is for me is Cork, rightly so. And this is not just blowing the hot air up them because of what they've done. They have rightly earned the position they're in now. And I think they very deliberately they've done it other ways over the years down through history. The league wasn't on the radar. This year they probably said, lads, it'd be nice to get our hands on a bit of silverware and get that confidence and that aura about you that you're kind of going into matches, not arrogant, but just a little bit of a swagger.
There's enough of that there already.
We know what Cork teams are like. They see this. Cork hurlers will see it as their divine right. And that's their traditions and their whatever you put it on. And they haven't done it for the last couple of years. But they have a lot of talent in that team. I think they're rightly the favourites. It's what Limerick bring after that. After that, then they still have to manoeuvre through the minefield that is Munster, and you just don't know. And by God, I am waiting for Sunday because, we mentioned it. What are Clare going to bring? Like Cork slapped Clare around Ennis in the league and put 6 goals in on them. And you'd imagine now that Brian Lohan probably just went away and said, "Okay, lads, let's bottle that up now, and we'll mind that for the first round." I would imagine Clare, they are eating barbed wire this week to get a crack at these Cork boys. And especially now with their league champions, it'd be a great way for them to start the Munster campaign.
Just on that, Joe, I wouldn't underestimate the value of getting a piece of tin on the table for Cork. I think that's huge. And then that's one famine ended, a 27-year famine. And obviously the end goal of this year is to try and end the 20-year famine. But I think it's gas. We have spoken a bit about Limerick, but it's amazing to think the team that were going for a drive for 5 last year, they didn't win the All-Ireland, obviously. They're going for 7 in a row in Munster this year, and they're not favourites to win the All-Ireland. And there are a few questions about them, but to me, they're still the tried and trusted team. Cork, I'd probably be a bit of a doubting Thomas about Cork until they actually go and do it. They look like they're better than last year. They look like they're better equipped to go and do it. But
what's the doubt?
The doubt about Cork?
Yeah.
Just until they actually go and do it.
That's the thing.
To be honest with you. When they do it, I think you're talking, they could win 3 or 4.
Right.
And it's just a matter of getting over the line. It's very like McIlroy with the Masters, to be honest with you.
I think that's the thing with us all. I think we acknowledge, and it's not, look, is it pressure? Is it all the rest of it? There's still that. They still have to go and deliver it, unfortunately. And they were so close last year. You say they were just within a whisker.
And just on that, Ned, you know how many ups and downs there are going to be. There's going to be lots of form. There's going to be lots of players. There could be a suspension in the middle of that. Like, it's not going to be all plain sailing. There's going to be so many highs and lows between now and, for them, hopefully the second last Sunday in July. Like, it's not going to be plain sailing or anything. Definitely not.
I honestly think they're on the crest of a wave. I think they're going to be extremely difficult to beat this year. I said it on the pod. I think they'll win everything this year. I'll be straight up to you. I just think now is time. Now is their time. I think last year, I think they're better team than last year. As I touched on it, I think they've gotten stronger. Don't underestimate the fan base behind them as well. 20, 30,000, 35,000 people shouting you on, rebels. That's worth 3 or 4 points.
You should have pawned the accent.
But before they take to the field, they have the panel depth as well. You're on about who are the main contenders. I think the 4 main ones are going to be Cork, Limerick. I think the 4 semi-finalists last year, Cork, Limerick. We're going to be waiting on Clare to see will O'Donnell be back. I think Kilkenny will be Kilkenny. You can never rule them out. And if Kilkenny got to a semi-final and they came up against Cork. They'd love having a crack against Cork in the semi-final. Kilkenny would be the type of team that they mightn't win it out, but they have the potential to take out a Cork at an All-Ireland semi-final stage. And I think the others then, you're looking on, what do the others want to get out of it? I think Waterford, they take the hand and the arm off you if they could get to an All-Ireland semi-final. I think Donohoe will be content in getting to an All-Ireland semi-final in his first year. Wexford, likewise. I think the other teams outside of those four would be content in getting to an All-Ireland semi-final.
Yeah.
They'd see that as a very, very good year.
And do you see Limerick as, maybe when you've won a lot and you're a bit more experienced, the league is kind of like, listen, we'll just muddle. We know when the business ends come, we'll get ourselves going at the right time. Or do you think this great team, maybe the greatest, are up there, give or take, are they on the slide a little bit?
Well, the man that can answer that question is the man across me, because he's been in this situation before. He's won 4 All-Irelands in a row.
But what's your eye telling you when you see him? Do you think they're on the slide, or is this just
I think they're on the other side of the mountain. I think they reached the peak of the mountain in 2021 when they played. Was it 2021? They played Cork. Mm-hmm. I think that was their peak. Now, when you go to the other side of the mountain, obviously they're such a good side.
Yeah. You come down slow.
They come down slow, and it was good enough for them to push on and win the next two All-Irelands. Are they still good enough to win another All-Ireland, 2 All-Irelands? Most certainly, yes. I think with that, is he going to win All-Irelands by staying loyal to the players that got him over the line in those 4 or 5 All-Irelands? I don't think they will.
That's the big challenge for me. That's the big question. I think that, this is a real test of John Kiley.
To be ruthless.
Yeah, because again, our own man, from my experiences, like when we spoke about this back in the pod, he left off Tommy in an All-Ireland. He didn't pick Henry in an All-Ireland.
Remind me of that one when he left off Tommy.
I think it was a 14 kind of. I think, was it that year?
He left him off for
14.
Most of that year. He was a converted forward.
Yeah, he had him in the
that
half
year.
forward line. So I suppose the point being, regardless to who the characters are, and this is, look, I really admire Kiley. I admire what he's done, even the way he has carried himself, and he talks very openly about things. But I suppose the big thing is now he has had a cohort of tried and trusted, and when the chips are down, he has been able to go to them. But now, he has to be able to spot now when 1 or 2 of them are just waning a small bit. And that's a very hard thing to do, because you have to take out your loyalty out of it now. You have to say, what is going to get the job done for us today? And is it time to integrate some new lads into the team? Is it time to let them off? And yeah, I know A, B and C, you've been very good to me in the past, but I have to think of the bigger group here.
And do you know what, to be fair to Cody, because he does get a bit of bad press for like the ruthlessness. A player retires and it's not like he gives them a hug or more than a 2-minute phone call, and it's kind of talked about as, geez, coolness there, which people don't love. But he could flip that and say, I kept that distance for the good of the team, so that I could drop Tommy. Who doesn't love Tommy? Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And still not about it, without ever.
Well, Jim Gavin done it with Dublin as well. That's another prime example.
Well, I think there's one example. I think in 04, we kind of, I think he felt himself, and I think he acknowledged this to a few people, was that he felt he got a small bit close to us all.
Yeah.
And he got a bit comfortable with us in terms of, and it's not a bad thing, it's human nature. Yeah. And it's sometimes then when you come back and you have to step back from the cold light of day and make those very hard decisions and know that your neck is on the line when it fails. And I think Brian got very comfortable with that, because he felt if it was what he felt was the right thing to do,
he just did it.
And that was it.
This is the first time Kiley has to do that, is it?
The only worry I have, Joe, and we spoke about this on the pod a couple of weeks ago, is from 8 to 15 up, all right, they have energy, they have legs to come in. You're talking the likes of Adam English, young O'Connor, Shane O'Brien. They have it from 8 to 15 up. The worry I would have is from 8 back to number 2. I don't think they have lads that they can trust, real young, energetic lads that can come in, touch tight, speed. Because let's be honest about it, as of right now, right, John Kiley is going to be looking on and saying, right, who have we got to overcome this year? And the main team that they're probably going to have to overcome are Cork. And what the Cork have up top, they have an abundance of speed. And now they have the strength to go and match Limerick in that department. So now Kylie's looking on it, right? He's probably from 2 to 7 or from 2 to 9, he's probably got 6 or 7 players that are in that age bracket of between 29 and 32 years of age. All right. And you go back to when Kilkenny, what did Cody do? And we touched on it. He introduced Paul Murphy. Touch tight, speed, full of energy, Killian Bucky. So that'd be the question mark I would have with Limerick. Do they have 2 or 3 players that you can bring in, full of energy, full of running, rather than these lads that have miles on the clock, and if they're going to be coming up against Cork, will they have the legs to stay with some of these Cork players?
Okay, that's interesting.
The goalkeeper one's fascinating as well.
Yeah.
Like Mull mentioned 2 to 8, and he's right. And then it's 1 to 8, because if there's going to be a new goalkeeper for Limerick in the championship for meaningful games for the first time in over a decade. That's going to be fascinating.
And like the value in Nicky Quaid for me is just, and again, initially we'd seen the value of him and it wasn't, but it really came to the forefront through 21, 22, 20, those few years. I think they got 116 off puckouts against Kilkenny in 2022, directly off puckouts. Like, so he was able to find his men and create scoring opportunities. That is phenomenal.
Huge. And who's man in possession at the moment?
Dowling is probably in possession.
Is it Dowling?
Just about, I'd say.
And so I haven't seen a huge amount of him. What's he like as a shot stopper?
He's to be honest with you,
he's brought off some
that's
good
the surprising
saves.
part. It's probably the puck outs is probably the area that's but like you're measuring yourself against the best and somebody who's been drilled to do that for over a decade, and it's so hard to do. He just is able to find space, and Hegarty and Tom Morrissey, it's almost like telepathic. He knows where the ball has to be and where they're going to be. So that's actually been his problem area.
And the other thing is even it's, I suppose, the little bit of, like, I feel if Limerick, the pressure is off now to some degree. And I remember, I done a thing with Declan Hannon there before Christmas, and I just said, Jesus, if you could go win one now, it would probably be nicer than all the rest, because you feel you're gone and those doubts are there. So it could even be that they lose this year and then come back, or whatever. That's the one that will really, because they look as if, and they've moved on from that. It's, as you said, they're down off that mountain. Now we're down here. Let's try, can we get up again? And there's going to be a little bit of pressure. They have the know-how to get the job done. They will come with something and say, look, this is Cork's platform. But the question is probably, I think, is just, is there some juice left in the tank for them? Is Hegarty and the boys, Tom Morrissey, because that energy game, Dara Donovan has been absent the last couple of seasons for big matches, and he's a key man for them.
And would you find that that's just like, it's your body, as in you have a certain amount of miles in the clock and you just use them up, or is it more in the head? You can't train with the same kind of
it's probably
madness.
it's probably a bit of both, because you're moving on, but you do hit your physical peak fitness, they say, around 29, 30, 31. So the age profile of these lads is good. It depends on the fitness side of what they've got there, but they're very smart players as well, and that's what's going to stand to them. But it's obviously upstairs is where you have your motivation and your drive, and do you want another one?
That has to slip.
And it has to slip because they've won so much. Now,
do you think after being beaten that slips? Surely that re-energizes
it does. I'm just saying it comes down from that, because you're there's probably matches that you win that you don't deserve to win, but you get the job done. Then you get caught. Then you get caught maybe a second time. So it could be a tactical adjustment, it could be a tweak in your fitness program, something small that just re-energize you. But as regards hunger and motivation, they should have it. But when I talk about it, we thought we had it in 05 as well. So it's such a minute
you can think
thing.
you have it.
You can think, and we were looking
So
at.
what is it amount? Is it like, I will have the goujons tonight, go on. Is it that kind of a thing?
No, it's. I suppose it's in your head, because you when you're tested and when you're under pressure, you'll default back and you'll go, okay, what worked for me before? And I've done that. I said, right, this is what I don't remember. That you went off and I worked on a few bits myself, and then you kind of realize. Then when you say, oh no, I still wasn't. Do you know, it's finding that sweet spot.
Is there not something similar
hard.
to 2011 though, Eddie, where Tipperary came on the horizon, Beachy in 2010? So what way we in 2011?
It just depends. I suppose it depends on the chats. It depends on the characters in the group and what the challenge was.
What was your motivation in 2011?
Well, I suppose, look, you'd failed ultimately, and we could see ourselves that we failed quite substantially. And yes, you're rolling into the matches and you're thinking, right, we're okay, we're there, and we just click on the day. And I remember myself, I can remember it all so vividly, and you kind of go, oh no, I was kind of chasing it all year. But I remember, you know, the words underneath the Hogan stand in the warm-up area, like that day, and you had, you know, Henry in the corner on crutches, the cruciate gone, and a lot of lads, you know, banjoed and crocked, like, and the worse for wear, and probably standing on a cliff edge going, is this it now? You know, is this going to be the way we finish? And there was that motivation then. And Brian just said it afterwards. He just said, lads, you have to, you know, he was always on, he said, we weren't good enough today and we have to suck that up and take it with us, bottle it up. And it was just motivation. Now, it depends too, because we had a good rivalry with Tipperary at the time. So there was that going on, and there wasn't, you know, you had beef with them.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's where what you said about now Cork and Limerick playing. So what way do Limerick readjust now and take to them? Because, but then you go, every match is a derby in Munster too. So it's a hard thing to do. But you'd imagine the question is like, and what you're hearing probably in Limerick is, sure, you is not in your agenda. You know, they don't. I think there's freedom now for Limerick. Actually, I think there's a freedom that should be in their game now to actually go, do you know what? Our place in history is secure if that's what you're thinking. And I know they won't, because they'll move on from that. They don't have to worry about legacy.
I honestly think they'd love nothing more to, you know, spoil the you know, the Cork air of excitement. I think, you know, off the back of what happened last year, you know, mean to tell me now, like Keane Lynch, Declan
no,
Hannon,
I'm not for 1 second saying that. I'm just saying they're the battles that probably go on in your head, and the question, like, again, there's a lot of layers to it. It's Kinnerk and the boys. Cunningham? What do they come up with? John Kiley, who is the best 15 ready to start that match, and they pride themselves on the 15 finishers. But I'm just saying is the freedom that they can play with now because of the past is, you know, the 5 in a row is off their back, or that the tension that was building. And now all the talk is on Cork, so it's ideal for them, and it's one of those ones where you say, lads, you know, you could throw it down. Are we done, lads? Are we finished?
It's very Kilkenny. Are we done?
But would they not be going in with the mindset of, right, we've a score to settle with Cork?
Oh, they do, but I'm just saying is the pressure is off to a degree. The pressure's going to crank up on Cork now because the expectation. But from a Limerick perspective, in that it was building, it was a drive for 4, 3, 4. They were taking them off and they were getting along. And that builds, because it's outside. It's what do you do? Do you break from the norm? Do you shut out all the noise? It's a hard thing to manage.
But you still think, even with that, Cork are going to have him? Even Limerick coming, loving nothing more than
I wouldn't say have him. Like, as I said, that'd be the one worry I would have.
Okay.
would be in their backline. You know, the miles on the clock.
Yeah.
And as I touched on, like, from a corner forward's point of view, Eddie was the same. Like, you would even see it in such a short space of time. Say, like, I'm not giving an example, maybe Sean Finn or Mike Casey, where 4 or 5 years ago you wouldn't get a sniff off him. Whilst now,
the accumulation of knocks and stuff.
Accumulation of knocks, you know, might be slowing down a small bit, where you might say, and you're scanning, looking on from the TV, saying, geez, I actually fancy myself against him rather than I would maybe 3-4 years ago.
I was behind the goal here in Nolan Park today watching, and there was a few little bits, you know, and again, I suppose you have to put context on the game, right? What the overall meaning was to them and the talks they trained a bit. But just even body language wise, I was looking at Sean Finn and Casey, I think they were talking at one stage, and they just look a little bit out of sorts.
Right.
And again, it's only a league match, right? But that thing can kind of, it can build up to something.
Yeah.
And just maybe the tank is going a little bit dry. It should be from what we say, but
they could do it. Let's have a last dance, and you get together that kind of way.
And that's what makes them dangerous.
Well, I think the key for him is definitely Kyle Hayes. I think Kyle, and it'll be very, very interesting.
And he's had some injuries.
The placement of Kyle Hayes this year, particularly when Declan Hannon comes back. You know, just say if they do come up against Cork, are they going to leave Kyle Hayes in the wing, or are they going to bring him into number 6? And then where do you put Declan Hannon?
Why? Explain that, John. Why is that so?
Well, I suppose, look,
he's a weapon on the wing.
Cork got an enormous amount of joy off of, you know, going right down the centre, you know, and going long, and
Hayes moving all over the place.
Hayes coming in behind Declan Hannon, the breaking ball, and they're going straight down the centre. And you even go back to the All-Ireland semi-final last year when they moved Kyle Hayes into centre back. They bombed straight back into the game. They took over the game. So it will be very, very interesting when the two of them, come up against each other, where they're going to play.
You can't avoid them at 6, really.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? You can, but it makes things a lot more difficult if you're
But
constantly going to
the downside is you lose him roving forward, is it?
Yeah,
And
but
you look at what they've
Might be
done, like
worth
by putting Decky Dalton, kind of an outside shooter, out there deep into midfield as an outball. Well, Kyle Hayes was left with a dilemma. Limerick were like, we can't leave him shooting anyway because he can put him over.
7 possessions, I think he had in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. That's what they kept the ball away. It's like
Reduced them to,
the most
yeah.
old school tactic of all
And
time.
I'd say
Keep the ball away from the best player.
if you watch the back, I'd say the majority of those 7 came in the last 15, 20 minutes of that match.
Joe, just the last one on
Go
Limerick.
on, yeah.
All the great teams have come back. Cork of the 40s came back. Kerry footballers came back in the 80s and they were beaten in 2 and then came back and won 3. Kilkenny did it. The Dublin footballers did it. And I know you're saying maybe the pressure is off, but that's the challenge. Can we
back,
go
yeah.
and really... We're a great team, but can we further cement that? Can we get 1, 2 more?
Who are you tipping here?
I think Limerick will win the
Limerick
All-Ireland,
will come
yeah.
back for
I think
that
Limerick
reason,
will win the
yeah.
All-Ireland. Not just for that reason. But I do like... There is beef with Cork and Limerick. And that's why... There's definitely... It's the same with Ian Tip. And it's gas. Tip were taken over hurling in 2011.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they didn't win another All-Ireland until 2016. Now, I think Cork are a hell of a lot closer. I think they're right on the
bubbling.
edge.
I think there's a...
Yeah.
With great rivals, there should be a little edge to it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
there was
And where were you coming down, though? Going to your head. I've won Cork and I've won Limerick.
I suppose I can understand completely where Limerick are. I think there's a little question marks about them, and that's brilliant for them because they go, great, this is a great way for us. And that's why I mean the pressure is off them a little bit. They can really attack this. The pressure is going to build on Cork. It's hard to look past Cork from the energy side of it and the momentum, the squad depth. And what I really know, like again, I was just looking through the scores during the league. They had a goal each in the first 3 matches. Then they hit 6, 3, 4. But they've shut it down at the back. They have become a really, really mean bunch at the back, and that was the Achilles heel that we had all said about them up to now.
Yeah.
I even think, a small thing, you might think I'm nuts in saying this. I think even you go back to the All-Ireland semi-final, contrast the 2018 All-Ireland semi-final and last year's All-Ireland semi-final, where Cork outnumbered Limerick probably 2-1 in last year's All-Ireland semi-final, in contrast to 2018. Now, no, Limerick were trying to make the breakthrough. But I even think, there's probably an onus back on the Limerick supporters that the next time they do meet in a big game that they're not going to be outnumbered 2-1, because if you're outnumbered 2-1, as I touched on, it's a big advantage. You're nearly up 2 or 3 points before you take to the field. So I actually think maybe the Limerick supporters probably got a small bit laxed and thinking, right, we're naturally just going to win 5 in a row.
And I'm not bullet dodging either. I would come back to
Yeah,
the
I just
answer.
thought. Sorry, what did he say?
Distract. I don't know. It's very hard because
You're allowed to say it's too close to call. you know?
I do.
No,
I-
you're not.
You are. Yeah. No.
I
Name on the block
suppose
there.
you'll know more, but I haven't experienced where Limerick were. I would fancy a kick in them.
Okay.
But he has to integrate 2 or 3 new lads. It's going to be, for me, it's his strategy now and the set up of the team and then the go-to as the match goes on. But I think that's what because they've gone quiet and how they're going to pitch up against Tip, but it's particularly then they get that bit of business done, it's then where they go after that.
Boys in the gas, we've chatted for about an hour, and I say we've talked about 15 seconds about the defending All-Ireland champions.
I know.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Come Monday morning, we could be having a different conversation.
That's the beauty of it, yeah.
Sunday's match, 4 o'clock. If they go to Thurles Sunday and they blow Tipperary out of the water, all of a sudden now you're saying, oh Jesus, hold on now a minute.
And what have we seen from them, the league, to suggest that they have that in the locker?
Clare?
Yeah.
Very little,
Yeah.
to be fair, very, very little. But it's gas once you get to the top. Their approach was last year try and get a league title, get momentum, build a panel, and they did. And they didn't have O'Donnell for the league last year, and their panel
Brought them on the final, actually.
Yeah, they brought them on the final, yeah, and their panel came to fruition. All that work throughout the league came to fruition in extra time, where they brought on lads that people probably didn't know much about, the likes of Keane Galvin, Darragh Lohan, etc., and it got them over the line. They probably maybe haven't had that many breakthrough players throughout the league, but it's been a different type of league. They were relegated, obviously. They had the blow of losing O'Donnell, maybe not for the year, during the league, but there's surely a kick in them as well. You're thinking maybe John Collins' a year older, McInerney's a year older, can they go to the well again? But as Mull was saying there, and you kind of briefly mentioned, Eddie, the old school breaking hurls off tables, paint coming off walls, hinges coming off doors, And I know, Mull, you were talking about in your column, I think, on Saturday, like you'd love to be a fly on the wall in that Clare dressing room. It mightn't be a sustainable approach for the whole campaign, but
by God, at the start.
emotion for one game, just go on pure raw emotion. We let our people down when Cork came to town 6 weeks ago. They absolutely battered the defending All-Ireland champions in the Fortress Ennis.
Kicked them around
It
Rowan Park,
wasn't.
yeah.
There was no Fortress that day. And if anyone not expecting a hop from Clare on Sunday is mad, in my opinion, and there will be the hop of all hops, and they'll be hopping off Cork as well.
How many hops in one sentence?
But I can't wait for that, and that's the great thing about it. Like, because like at the end of the day, like Lohan is tribal and raw,
Yeah.
and he will. I don't even think he'll have to say much, to be honest with you, because they'll know. You telling me John Conlon won't know, David McInerney won't know, Tony Kelly won't know.
Conor Cleary.
Yeah.
But do Cork now, are they a steelier bunch?
They
Bring
are,
on the
yeah.
fight, lads. We'll fight you.
I think so, and that's
Yeah.
great, and that's what they were missing. There was a little bit of a soft core there, and it's
Well, it'll be
flipped the opposite way.
tested in Ennis, though, I suppose.
yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. Like they can't relax on their laurels because they know now what it has took. Years of hurt, years of no silverware to get to this point. And now I'd imagine, Pat Ryan is thrown down to him, but you have to move on. That's what the best teams do.
I think what will stand him as well is the fact that 12 months ago they walked into an ambush down in Welsh Park, and I think they will be ready for Sunday, knowing that Clare are going to throw everything at them.
It is amazing, isn't it? Like the round robin was only brought in because the football crowd were bringing in the Super 8s, and Hurling thought, gee, should we do something? Let's just dust off this old round robin thing we had thought of before and bring it in. And it's been like a supernova.
Yeah.
The Munster chairman was saying that there's about 7 million brought in at the gate last year. I was reading there'll be 7 sellouts just in Munster alone. Like, instead of kind of dulling that kind of edge to a game, it's not really knockout, it's the opposite. It's like you can't get a ticket for these games. Why has it been such an unbelievable success since 2018, do you think? This has taken off now into the best almost 2 months of the year in some ways.
I suppose it's the jeopardy is there. I suppose every game just takes on a life of its
Yeah.
own. I suppose.
Maybe Munster's never been that competitive in a way, like evenly. Waterford could do what come to the party.
Yeah, Waterford
but,
do-
but it's not like, there's a guaranteed 3.
Yeah, but on any given day, if any one of the 5 would believe that, right, if we turn up today, we can turn the other team over,
Yeah.
and
Which Leinster doesn't have to the same extent.
possibly not at the moment.
Yeah.
The only issue I have, and you just touched on there. I mean, that's an astronomical amount of money, 7 million, and I don't like to be like a broken record. I just think the ticket prices. I think putting it up another €5, and I've heard people arguing that, oh geez, in contrast to the price of Champions League games and the Premiership games. I just think we need to be very, very careful going forward. I think it's great now, and I think as people have touched on it, there's supply and demand, probably hence why they've put up the ticket prices. But my fear is that in the previous championship, like I'm speaking for the families that probably only have a certain amount of income coming into a household, that they're nearly going to have to pick and choose what games they can go to, because I mean, within the next 5 weeks, you've 4 games within 5 weeks. That's only the group stages, and at €35 a pop. Now, people would say it's great value. It is. For
Entertainment-wise.
Entertainment-wise, what you do get, but I just think there needs to be we've seen the Leinster chairman, Derek Kent, saying the Leinster tickets, they're capped at €25 now. They don't. I just think there needs to be clarity going forward for the next couple of years, saying, right, this is where it's at. It's not going to keep going up. We've seen it with the league final tickets. Went up to €20. We've seen it with the kids' tickets, went up to €5, and then couple of weeks later, then they were giving out free tickets for a certain amount of tickets if you're involved in a club, and club member can bring you. And my only worry going forward is that we don't end up like going down. Like, we're grand now because
Pricing
we
the ordinary
great
person over,
championship,
yeah.
but we mightn't have a great championship in 12 months' time. Munster championship, we might have a great championship in 3 years' time. And my fear is that we might end up going the Cheltenham route, where people might say, well, hold on now a minute, it's getting too expensive. I'm not going to go to the match, and we end up with no bums on seats. That would be my worry going forward, you know.
Yeah, but the just again coming back to, and that's a valid point, because you're saying for the young lads especially, I think that's to me that's something that, and I know they haven't rode back on it, they've probably rode out, and maybe they haven't got there wasn't enough storm about the fiver for young lads. I just personally I think it's wrong. It's a beautiful part of our game. It's the most easiest way to promote our game is let the young lads in there, because what else would you want them doing to look on the pitch and say they want to be like that? You're growing the game. And I think
what did they raise it to? Sorry,
it just went up to just a fiver for all.
Nothing previously.
It was nothing.
Yeah.
No, it was
to
nothing.
bring a under
15,
16,
Under
16 or 15.
Right.
So like it was grand, and like that was the big thing.
that is amazing, really, isn't it?
It is, and I'm
Yeah.
surprised that the response has been as mute. I know we highlighted whatever, but I'm surprised that it hasn't got more traction, because it's the one thing I think if you are a parent and you're iffy about going and you have 3 or 4 kids, you're going, it's 20 quid, that's another 20 quid or 50. Do you know what I mean? It might sway you to go, look, I'll watch it on telly. Whereas you'd love nothing more than, I think it's brilliant. Fill up the stadium. You'd be trying to incentivize it. I know a few years ago in the club, we were trying to, the under 14s, 13s, 12s, whatever, get them into the match and behind the goal, and they get to see what's going on. It was just a great way of bringing in the groups. And I think now, that's going to cost a few bob or whatever. But
Once you have them in there, that's the hook, isn't it?
yeah, well, that's it. You want them there. You want them dreaming close. They can see their heroes, get the old high fives, sign the hurls, all that type of stuff. The best
And you could
publicity
see it. There
going.
was a drop off with the amount of
Yeah.
kids that weren't going to National League games.
But kind of coming back to the round robin thing, I think it's been deadly. I would like to see it breathe a little bit, in that it's probably so heavy now. You could be turning around, and we spoke with this numerous times. Your season could be up in flames in a 6-day window, because you're bet on a Sunday and the following Saturday or whatever.
Could
it is.
happen, Clare,
You
yeah.
could, you take even, we'll say, a tip in the first round, or whoever, Clare. Like, that's the thing. Your season is up in jeopardy straight away. So I think it needs to open up a small bit. But can you imagine the product that has been there in the round robin in Munster for the last years? And there has been brilliant matches in Leinster. There's been massive jeopardies. The famous 19 where they all finished on 7 points. That's what the kind of scenarios we want. But if you can imagine then down the line, throw Kilkenny across, throw Galway across, throw a strong Dublin across, Wexford, and growing your teams, wouldn't that be some products to kind of, whatever way you do your league? The provincials is obviously the prestige of winning your provincial is the big one. But as if you were to say it right here, right now, what would be the dream type event? I think it's like that on Friday night, and I've said this, I'm repeating myself, Friday night, Kilkenny and Cork in the first round, Limerick, and whatever way it is, a Friday night match, 2 Saturday or whatever, that would be a great product given what we have now. But again, how we kind of probably get to that, it's hard when you have 2 teams. But I just think from a calendar point of view, I think it's a little bit early. I'd love to see it being pushed back a little bit and maybe open up a little bit of a gap there for teams to recover a little bit more and just be ready then that you don't, your championship isn't up in flames. Like, was it a few years ago? Teams gone I think Dublin were out of championship 21st of May. And you don't want, you don't want that.
You've seen it from a manager's point of view as well, though, and how taxing it is. You're literally rolling from one week to the next. Like, it's play your game, hopefully celebrate, recover, game
But
again
I don't know
next
how
week.
any of the current managers could possibly go to their jobs
Yeah.
in between this at the round robin. You
Yeah,
can't possibly
full-time.
do that. It's
But the
tough.
contrast between the two, I mean, the Leinster Championship, it allows you to kind of grow. Like, Offaly will hope to grow this year. Dublin will hope to grow this year. And you flip that over with the Munster Championship. I mean, it's all about trying to survive. Or if you don't survive, you could end up getting murdered. Like, so, like Tipperary, Waterford. You look at them, they're the 2 outsiders for the Munster Championship. If Tipperary and Waterford were in the Leinster Championship, they'd fancy their chances of finishing in the top 3 and getting them an All-Ireland quarter-final.
Yeah. Waterford have a hate-hate relationship with this round robin thing.
Well, we were still trying to nail it. Our record, is pretty poor. Although in saying that, they were extremely unlucky last year. I mean, I was at that game against Tipperary. They should have closed out that match. If they beat Tipperary last year, they were qualified.
2 years ago against Limerick.
And 2 years ago against Limerick. But I suppose having the 2 home games back in Welsh Park, in contrast to having to travel up to Thurles, it's a big plus for them. And Waterford, you'll find with Waterford, Joe, I find with this Waterford team, they're dangerous when nobody's talking them up. They're dangerous when they're being written off. You look at last year, nobody was giving them a prayer against Cork. People were saying they were going to be beaten out the gate. And they're going along nicely.
Okay.
Good league campaign.
Whisper it quietly,
And
boys.
it'll be very, very
There was a
interesting
dream,
to
there was
see,
Rome.
what will play out up in Ennis Sunday. If we're predicting that both Cork and Clare are going to go at it hammer and tongs, if we're predicting that Cork were to overcome Clare to come down to Welsh Park 7 days later, battered and bruised Clare team, albeit they'll be a bit sore, they'll have the bit between their teeth. A fresh Waterford team at home, that game would be a massive game. That game would then become a massive game if Waterford were to overcome Clare. Then you've got to remember the head-to-head is a massive one in the Munster Championship. So that first game for Waterford against Clare is a massive game,
Yeah. Where are you in Kilkenny?
Hard to know, because I think we've mixed some very good stuff during the league with some awful stuff. There's, I think at times, there was a real lack of edge in the play, and you're not saying that just to be critical of them. You're not, because there's certain values that Kilkenny will always bring that probably dilute some of the tactical stuff that you come against. Is those certain values of that never say die is there, and I just didn't see enough of it during the league. At times we saw it, at times we and I think that's the one thing that Derek will really want to tap in, because there's a huge premium on getting over Saturday, winning Saturday, and you're kind of setting yourself up for the rest of the campaign. Whereas if you don't get the result on Saturday, in the last 3 years, they have been, one match they've been separated by a point. Other than that, it's been draws. So to go back then, Badnall as Antrim might look like they're going, it's still a very dangerous place to go the following week if you're not after getting
good
your
place.
W in the first round. So
What is the word and what's going on with Davy and Antrim?
I don't know. I've heard very, very little. I think there was a bit of he done a bit of grumbling there after one of the league
After the
matches
game,
about certain things, and I think some of the players did some of them move on from last year. He's down one or two, and obviously, look, Neil McManus couldn't stay playing forever either. But the Offaly match I watched, and they just looked like they were all over the place. Now they were trying to do something. This flying out from the back that he failed miserably with Waterford, I think. And again, look, Davy's a gas man. He comes up with these tactics that he believes is the way forward. I suppose the question is, what's he going to do that's probably going to stifle some of the bigger teams? Like, I would fully expect him to roll a tactical game above that will force Derek Ling and his management to think completely differently about how this match might be won, because they kind of can't sail into that match in Antrim, in Corrigan Park, and just trust that the lads will have a better skill set or a bit hurling ability. I think they're going to have to be prepared for what could be a downright ugly match, in that you could see a football-esque type set up to it. And then what they'll do, like TJ Reid could have 2 or 3 lads for company for the day. Do you know, because Davy will identify that if he can nullify TJ Reid's influence on that match, he might be able to do something elsewhere. You'll see him bring a lot of energy, and then his bench. But I don't know, because we've heard very, very little, and they've had a poor league campaign.
Now, the only thing that's
results towards the end of
they
it.
turned it around. It was like a real kind of a low point. Offaly battered them over in Tullamore, and that'll obviously be the big game. I think anyway, it'll be the big game at the end of Leinster to see who stays up or who goes down. But they turned the corner towards the end of the league, so I don't think they're in a bad spot going into the.
And I suppose
Saturday
it's new concepts as well. He's probably putting in a system for them lads, and they're adjusting and learning to that. That doesn't happen overnight.
Now they changed their style. They changed their style mid-league. They went from playing maybe some of those kind of nearly like Dutch football tactics almost to a lot more orthodox, and they started putting up big scores. And it was very similar to the Waterford Mull.
Is there a degree of too clever by half?
I think so. I think he can be a bit too smart in hurling at times, and you can bamboozle lads. I know Eddie said it's maybe not as instinctive as it was. We're still somewhat instinctive.
It's a fast game.
Well, it is a fast game. And but you can't be overburdened with things. You have to just be able to see what's in
If you
front of
can
you.
get your basics very much right and have a clear enough simplistic way of playing, then for a team that is in Antrim's boots right now, maybe that's the way forward. And will Antrim have any fear of playing Kilkenny? They shouldn't, after the last couple of years, because they've had some good performances against them. So he'll be looking at that match as one that if he could pull something out of the bag early,
Yeah, and they'd start to believe in
then
Davy
you
and
just don't
the
know.
magic.
I can't see him win the game. I think the fixtures are unkind to him. I think, you look at the games that they have away from home. I don't see him beating Wexford. The one big game that you would say that they possibly will really home in and say that they might have a chance of winning would be Offaly, but I think they've got to go to Tullamore for that match. I couldn't see him.
Not simple either.
I couldn't see him beating Galway or Kilkenny. Dublin have to go to Corrigan Park. I think it's going to be a very, very difficult campaign for him. Like, you'd be thinking, and particularly they beat Wexford up in Corrigan Park last year, so I think Wexford will be really on their guard going into Saturday's game. So you would have been thinking, like, if they'd Wexford and Offaly both at home, they might have been eyeing those two games up and saying, right, we can only get 4 points out of them. But I think it's going to be very, very difficult, and it's going to be very, very hard to see where they're going to pick up results.
Yeah. We can't talk about everyone. I'm sure there'll be Galway folks saying, where's our preview and all the rest. Who's your favourite hurler that you want to watch this year, 2025? You can interpret that as the best hurler in the country if you want, but just who's your favourite hurler that you'd pay money to go and watch this year?
I love the fact that Alan Connolly gets goals. He's a goal machine, and I think he's, to me, one of the key. I know they've had other lads added to him, and I've been saying this for kind of a couple of years. Last year he's so direct, and he's a smart guy in around the goal. He's clever.
So are we talking about Eddie Brennan here or Alan Connolly? What are we?
No, Alan Connolly.
Sorry,
absolutely.
okay, sorry. Yeah.
No, absolutely ancient history now at this stage. Show. No, I just like the way he plays, because I think they have. Cork now are putting a huge, like, the currency for them is getting those goals and keeping them out at the back. It's something that has probably bucked the trend recently, in that Limerick were always about hitting that 30-point mark or up around that was going to get them home in most matches, and a lot of us they'd be all saying that now. But Cork seem to be, like, with the tree inside, they force you to defend so well.
Yeah.
You can't. And Hoggy, despite age, he's still zipping
fresh as
around
ever.
nicely. And, like, even the started league, they didn't really play him in some of the matches. Jeez, he's bang on form now again. Like, and he's so tidy with the hurl. You can't leave someone like him. And Limerick historically likes to kind of lose their men a bit at times. Whereas what Cork done last year, they forced them to defend really, really well. And if you didn't defend well, then that's how Cork got their in both those matches. But I just, for me, I like what Connolly does. Obviously, then going to be a tiny bit biased and jump to us. I'm waiting to see what TJ brings, because he's a different gravy. He's just a different gravy. Even a few of the matches, like the tip match, poor Noz Kilkenny were that day, he still is the go-to man. And he still can make so much happen. And to me, that's the sign of a great player, is that he can bring everybody else into the match. And that's my point, is that if Davy is looking at one man to stop, to possibly give him, or whatever.
And he's generally did well with Wexford.
He's managed that before. He has he had a Matt Hanlon there. That
He's Ronaldo of hurling.
But
Like, the condition he's in,
TJ is just, lads. He's just a joy to watch. Any way you want it. I'd love to see him, and I've saying this for a while now. I go back to 2014 All Ireland when he, tortured poor James Barry inside the edge of the square in that replayed All Ireland. To me, he's at an age now, okay, he can win ball outside. I'd like to see him playing a lot around the goal.
Yeah.
I was very sorry, Joe.
Go on, go.
What was very interesting this week, I seen in an interview, he stated that he can hurl with Kilkenny till he's 40 years of age. So straight away, that tells me he's thinking of this, the scoring episode with Horgan. He's throwing it back to Horgan, saying, well, look, I'm going to be here for the next
Two boys will go around on
3 to 4
crutches.
years.
Trying
but
to tip over
it's great.
frees.
I was just touched on him, like, he's nearly like Ronaldo, the way he's conditioned himself. Like, it's nearly like a Messi and Ronaldo, like, over and back. But
I was down here at a stag once. Who hasn't been? And he was out. And the way sometimes you need to see someone in person to appreciate. Jesus, the shape because he's wearing a tight enough t-shirt now. He was letting everyone know he's in good shape.
Hey, wouldn't you wear it if you look like that?
But honestly, the shoulders on him.
That's the young lads nowadays, yeah.
The physique.
Right, I'm going to
throw
throw it.
Disco muscles.
I'm going to throw it back. Give me your hurler of the year.
Right, okay, well, go on.
Go on, Ned.
Maybe Shane Barrett for Cork.
Oh, I was going to pick him.
Two boys will go forwards all day, every day. Favourite hurler forward. Hurler of the year forward. And just keep going. I go
And you
back.
just go at some pig of a corner back.
Well, pig. Yeah, I will actually.
Well, the last hurler of the year back was Tommy Welch in
right,
2009. Like,
That's right. You asked favourite hurler.
But it's harder to be a forward, isn't it?
Excuse me?
It is nowadays. You need fierce brains. You need to be very clever on the ball.
Good looking.
Hot shot Hamish.
Jesus Christ.
Boy, hurler of the year, Fernie.
1 second, I give my favourite player is
Yeah.
Adam Hogan. I just love an in-your-face cornerback. Always wants to rile up the corner forward, wants to get in his face. I'd be straight with you. I thought in last year's All-Ireland semi-final that he mentally broke Owen Cody. He broke him mentally. He just tormented him. And your favourite player was Connolly. He did a fair job of breaking him in the All-Ireland final as well. And I think his performance on Sunday will tell a lot to see how Clare go. And I think someone like him, cornerbacks don't often set the tempo of a game, but someone like him can. As regards hurler of the year, I would look at two Cork backs, funnily enough. One would be Kieran Joyce and the other would be Rob Downey. And it's funny because we would have been talking about Kieran Joyce as the Cork centre-back for the next 10 years until he got hurt last year. And then Rob Downey comes in centre-back and now they have a centre-back and they've kind of swapped around. And Downey, you just can't get around him at the minute. He's so hard to penetrate around that centre of defence. And Joyce is so abrasive, like so strong, physical. He did a job on Gerard Hegarty, who was in brilliant form in the All-Ireland semi-final last year. So I'd look at either of them, who are both huge prices, might I add, as well. And I don't think it'll be an obvious one if Cork were to win the All-Ireland. I don't think it'll be an obvious one. And I think potentially a defender could win hurler of the year even without Cork winning the All-Ireland. One of them.
John, your favourite hurler? You gave us your hurler of the year. Who do you like watching the most?
I'd say, look, TJ. One of three, really. TJ, Jamie Barron, going to number 11. I think that's a big one for Waterford. Very hard to tie down in at number 11. I think the one player that we're all hoping he's going to be back and that we'll see him at some stage of the summer is Shane O'Donnell. I nickname him
Limerick.
the Magnet I call him. So hopefully the Magnet will be back. But who knows? Clare could be gone out of the championship in 2 weeks' time or 3 weeks' time. So
Maybe I
the
should
beauty of the Munster Championship.
Who's your hurler of the year, Mull? You were going asking everyone else.
I would have picked Shane Barrett,
Yeah.
but if it's not Shane Barrett, I'm going to go for Brian Hayes.
Brian Hayes. Sorry, defence forwards, the worst position is goalkeeper. Like Shane Dowling going goalkeeper. It's the most insane position in world sport, isn't it?
You need a few screws.
Probably
loose,
is.
wouldn't you?
They're
It's madness.
definitely a special breed, all right.
Do they wear all pads in training?
No.
No,
I'd say
never.
just the children's allowance pad, and that's it. I think that's it. After
Some
that,
of them don't even wear that.
No, they
by all
don't.
accounts.
No, and that's even more madness. That
Well,
tells you all you need to know, maybe.
You know the episode of The Simpsons where Milhouse is just kicking Bart in the crotch repeatedly. They're like, you want to be fair. A couple of things. You want to be fair, brave to playing goals. You do need that element of madness as well, though.
Like
it's-
TJ Reid, from what I remember seeing this summertime in 14, he scored a goal on Darren Gleeson, and apparently the ball was travelling at over 170 kilometres an hour. Now, and you're like, will you stand up to that, lads? And we're giving out about a lad turning his arse to a ball or not wanting to get a smack of that ball. That's the one thing, but I suppose that on that one, like that's a key one for Limerick, and I just think, wow, if they, I thought it was even Shane Dowling was very brave to do that. I think that is incredibly either mad or brave, but like to go back from what he's been doing out of the loop and potentially go in there. There's only one way, it's either going to be heaven or all the way into hell. Like there's no in between for him, unfortunately. But
has that been done before? Like, where someone has gone from the studio back to the pitch?
I think
basically?
TJ's planning to do that when he hits 40.
I think they did Adrian Rowan and Kilkenny did.
Adrian done it, yeah. Ronnie, my
yeah.
neighbour would have done that, yeah. He was. He played in goal a good bit up along, but he was kind of the sub goalie for Kilkenny through 92, but he was out the field equally as good.
But Dowling had never dabbled with goalkeeping before the injuries.
With Napirsig in
Pearson for the last couple of
underage
seasons.
days. But like, he obviously
They
played
got,
outfield.
I think
for
their
maybe-
number one goalie got injured maybe last year or the year before for championship, and he stepped in.
Yeah.
Having played with their second team,
Yeah.
and suddenly it has
Escalated.
snowballed from there. Yeah,
Is it just a straightforward Kilkenny win the Leinster Championship then?
I don't think so, no. I'd be a little bit concerned about the boys on the Slaney side. I think they had a good finish. If you're looking at pitching up into the championship in a good headspace, I think halfway through the league it wasn't. But by God, at the end of the league, if you would have said to Keith Roster that he would beat Limerick in Ennis in a comfortable fashion like they did, regardless to what way Limerick are, or in the Gaelic rounds, and also beat Clare, you'd have said that's some way to finish the league when it looked to been possibly going to be an absolute ball of pain at the end of a league.
What's the common denominator, Ed? Chinner.
Look, when I think he has gone to, I would have been, I said this openly, I would have questioned his out and out hurling prowess, you know, maybe 2-3 years, about 2 or 3 years ago. But the last couple of seasons, he has been just a different gravy.
And he's just
some of
spent
the points
three months in Australia.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him yet, but I can imagine the state of his body after that. I'd say he's ready
Joe,
to go.
The Leinster launch was last week, and I was sitting directly beside him. Jeez, boys, like he's an absolute animal. Like he's probably one of the greatest GA specimens. Like his muscles coming off muscles. Like, do you know what I mean?
But he's agile.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
agile.
But
He's
I
agile.
thought a couple of seasons ago he got very kind of bound looking and heavy looking.
Oh, did you? Right.
Whereas I think he has got that real life. What he has is he can cut hard left or right now.
Yeah.
And he has it left or right. He was won the league last year against Galway below. Like he was exceptional that day. Like he threw over points that for me have took him up to the level of the top ball strikers in the game, which I think he hadn't been maybe up to 3 or 4 years ago. Whereas now, like it was very much we were all saying, oh, he's a specimen. It's like, no, hold on, he's playing hurling. I think he is that good to this Wexford team. And if he's fit and on top of his game like that, he obviously then throw in Rory, Conor McDonald if they can get him back. But they have some good players there. And I just think if you're looking at maybe an outsider for one of the provincial titles, I wouldn't rule them out at all. I think they'll be dangerous in Leinster this year.
Okay.
It's funny to
No one
hear
that
Chin
Kilkenny have to
talking
go
as
there.
well, lads. You were saying that he probably was a bit kind of bound up, maybe a bit. He's actually doing like less hurling now, so shall we say? He said he's obviously doing his physical work. It's second nature to him. But he says he spends a lot of time even playing golf and getting away from hurling now, where he was always trying to get up to the hurling field to practice the next thing. Sometimes you actually, in a way,
experience.
you kind of have enough done,
Yeah.
and you need to clear your mind and not be constantly trying to like really hone in on areas. He's working hours every week.
Is
Like
TJ at that now? Would TJ have just chilled out now and say, my base is done, I just tip over, or is he still
Well, I
militant
think
about practice?
hurling brains, no matter what, they'll be there regardless to how fast or slow you're going. Your brain will still think sharper, I think, as you go older. You see things quicker, and that's the difference with the greats.
And with his freeze, do you think he's still doing mad? Like, are him and Horgan still doing wild hours on a practice field, do you think? Or are they almost just...
I'd say TJ probably has tapered it off a little
Yeah.
bit. I heard, like at times he obviously dedicated him to, I think at different stages of your career, you go completely OCD with all that stuff, and then you realise, okay, that's maybe not as good as I need to be, or I don't need to be that way. I know Horgan, I was hearing different things about what they used to do. Like it was
7 in the morning, this kind of crack
mental
down the
stuff.
Glen.
Like, and you kind of go, Jesus. But then look, whatever works for you. I mean, who are we to say that's too much or whatever? But I do think when you do get older, you can kind of put things into perspective. You know how to get yourself up for the match. You don't need to be, growling and hurl all week long, whereas then the experience, what works for you. And I think maybe Chin is at that stage of his career where he can go after the quality side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, what's the point in hitting 70 and 80 frees on a rest day when you might get 10 in a match? Like, go out and hit 10, step away from it. Like,
Yeah, he's probably gone to Shane O'Donnell route now, where he's going to be relatively fresh now coming into the championship.
And that's key with the
that is
system.
key.
Well, I think O'Donnell last year, not playing the league, I'm busy with my work, I'll bounce nice and fresh into... I'd say a lot of players looked at that and said, I'd rather do that.
Yeah, when you get to an age, Joe, you
know what I
can,
mean?
and you have a body of work
And
done.
Lohan with the intelligence to say, yeah, I trust you, Shane. You don't worry about it in the league. Live up in Dublin, you live in Dublin, come down then to Ennis for the summer. And it's really good
especially-
management, you
and
know.
Especially with modern, conditioning, they say it takes you 2-3 years. These lads are doing 4 and 5, 6 years of good conditioning behind them and more. That stands to you. You can probably get fit
Cody
a little
Collin.
bit quicker. No. You can probably get fit a little bit quicker. Do you know what I mean? You can train smart for a couple of weeks, and it's more that I think freshness is everything with the current system.
When you get to that age, you have that much done.
Yeah.
that You're just tipping over. It's hard to go for big gains at that stage. Do you know what I mean? Because you're probably pushing yourself over the top as well.
Yeah.
The two boys that know a lot more about
Yeah.
it. When you get to that age, it's freshness.
You
isn't it?
must have you just got craftier as you got older, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I went that route. I remember to be fair to Davy's last 3 years, the Tuesday after Patrick's Day would come back, and we'd obviously working away in our own program. And to be fair to, remember Scully came in after Davy, and he had us all back in October, and I got as far as early January. I was doing about 7-8 weeks before start of January, and I didn't want to be there. I was so accustomed to working off what I was doing the 3 previous years, and I really it benefited me because I was flying to come to championship. And I remember saying to Scully and Michael Ryan at the time, saying, "Look, Michael, I don't want to be here." Like, And he said, well, look, geez, would you not take 2 weeks break? And I said, no. I said, look, I'm just on the verge of packing it in. And he said, well, no, look, he said, what do you want to do? And in fairness to Michael, he threw it back to me at the time. He said, look, what you want to do? And I said, look, can I not do what I done the previous 3 years? And I'll work off my program with Jimmy Payne, who was a strength and conditioning guy at the time. And I'll come back in after Tuesday after Paddy's Day, and I'll give you everything.
Yeah.
And Michael, to be fair to him, he said, right, you go and do that. And came back into Tuesday after Paddy's Day, played the last 2 games of the league, had to win the last 2 games of the league, survive. And come the summer then, I was, fresh. It was more the hunger as well.
Yeah.
And the drive was in me to go and push on and give a good account of myself in the summer. So
I think we'll see more of that,
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Not lads at 25, but lads 31, 32, 33. It's clever.
Or
Like.
a Richie Hogan type.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
We're pretty much we're done. We've stayed too long. That was Cody calling you, was it? If Cody walked in here, what would he say?
It's geez, that's
He'd walk back out and say,
And all he'd get in his ear is, "There's only one Brian
Frank
Cody."
Get back out and start practicing, lads. But no, look, he's. I said in some ways, yeah, you'd be curious to know. I guarantee you, he's still just loves watching hurling. He'll be somewhere watching it. I guarantee you, he'll be there at the matches, and guarantee you probably have a odd little phone call with Derek. I'd say too.
Oh, do you reckon?
They probably would.
Check in.
Yeah. Look, Derek Shaw was there under Brian for a good few years, and so there'd be strong connections. I'm sure. Look, he'd want him to be his own man too, but I'm sure he's there to bounce little idea, or have a chat about something or whatever. And like I said, Derek is very much his own man. He'd have learned a lot over the last couple of seasons and know what he wants. But I suppose sometimes maybe that's it. It could be just little nuggets here and there, maybe, or whatever.
Ned, a sticky one just to finish. You only played under one manager. Is there any other manager that you would have liked to play under? This is like just hypothetically.
That's
obviously.
the thing. Jeez, yeah, there's lots of them there. Like I've spoken to a few, spoken to John Kiley a few times. I think he's quite impressive. But I suppose Dalo, I enjoyed. I suppose I disliked Dalo for a few years, because he was the opposition manager in Clare, and Clare, we wanted to get a cut at Clare and all that, and he was the manager there, and he was brilliant, some of the stuff on the sideline and all that. And then there was the whole, when he arrived on in Dublin and different things. But I just, having read his book and, talking to Niall Cork and different things, you'd be curious to know, and again, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't change what I had for the Worlds, no. But you just look at someone from now where I stand and you're trying to manage and coach teams, you just go, well, what could I learn from that? But just some of the episodes that he went on with, I just, arriving into the dressing room with the togs and a hat on him, asking about the pool with the
That was
Dublin
before
lads.
league final.
Before league final,
the kind of
so you just go
relaxings,
little things like that, and he's a kind of an energy guy, Dalo. Even I remember a couple of years ago we were up doing. We were doing the Sunday game, and at the time we had the Sky lads beside us, so the Celtic and Rangers boys were mixing freely anyway and having the bands, and it was great. But Dalo arrived on, and he was like a child on Christmas morning. Well, boys, are you up for the weekend? And it was like, and at the time I was like, kids were small, and there was championship coming or whatever it was at the club, and you're like, oh no, we're not. And then you were like looking at him, I said, geez, look at him, and he was just full of energy. And I just say he's that kind of larger than life kind of guy. And just I say just something different. So I think like I said, I often say with any of them, I'd love to be a fly on the wall just to hear different things and some of the stories. So
I think that's important. Like where and particularly with management is getting the timing right where you can.
Reading the room.
Reading the room, and there's a time to be serious, and then there's a time to kind of to dial it down and say, right, we'll just have the bit of the laugh and
wasn't there a thing with Dalo with Dublin where they were off a tough defeat and they turn up for training Tuesday ready for a hard session, and he said, no, we're going for ice creams, and they and jump, nice swim on
just clear the heads
into the sea and ice creams and no training tonight, that kind of thing. You'd have to say Cody. Just out of sheer curiosity, you'd have to say Cody.
Look, Cody, no, it'd be Sheedy for me.
Oh, really?
Sheedy, yeah. I mean, he came down. Remember Derek McGrath County final in 2012, the Friday night before, played the county final. Didn't know Sheedy was coming down, and we were after training that night, and in walked Sheedy, and he spoke for 8-9 minutes, and walked straight back out the door. And I tell you, it was possibly the best speech I've ever heard. And I remember Derek at the time just said, right lads, see you Sunday. And I knew even just walking out that door, I said, there's absolutely no way we're going to be beating Sunday. And, you know, he just the type of personality, you just know by even the read of the room that night that, yeah, he'd be the type of fella that I'd love to play under.
What was the gist of the message or the speech?
I couldn't be telling you that now, Joe. Because I'll tell you, I'm sure now Liam Sheedy's possibly going to go on to other club teams and he's probably going to go on and give him an all pep talk before the next county final or whatever. But yeah, it was probably one of the best speeches I've ever heard, yeah.
Okay.
Sheedy wouldn't like me telling you that now either, no.
Yeah. Eddie, before we finish. No, just before we finish, you're talking about the Sunday game. Is it okay to tell the Cyril Farrell beef story, please, just to finish off? I've only heard this once, and I just can you fill us in, please?
Yeah, once or twice now. Last year was it, but one of the years anyway. The food would be, we'll say, what you had in the canteen. We'll say on the Saturday. We'll say on the the Sunday you had whatever choice. And I remember saying in the lunch one, I said, lads, can we, the build up to it, I said, we order an old takeout this evening when we're having the meeting and getting ready for later on, just whatever. And so we said, yeah, grand. So Rory and the lads and Des, yeah, we'll order that. So there was, and we're around the table picking the team or whatever, and you know the usual stuff that we're going through, the All-Star team, Night All Ireland. But anyway, Ken was there as well, and Ken looked at the menu, and out of nowhere, Ken goes, oh yeah, Mongolian beef, I love that. And I was like, how do you even arrive at Mongolian beef? I said, did you have it before? No. I said, so why would you go for them? It's like, the rating was like 4 of the spicy yolks. You know, the hot
the little chilies. Yeah, yeah.
So, and Cyril goes, someone said beef. Yeah, I love beef as well. And I was like, I don't know. So the food arrived and we're doing the chat. And next thing we're eating away. And Cyril Farrell starts hissing. Like he's like, he's after eating the Mongolian beef. And you can see him reddening up and he's like, and like, get water quick. And I was like, I blame Ken. I said, that's your fault, Ken. You know, you've offed Cyril. And like, because everyone, you know, Cyril Farrell is just, to me, he's like the granddad of hurling. He's just absolutely box office. And now when the poor devil was under pressure, like, with, you know, that initiative, if you're not used to spicy food, you know, you hate it and, it can change how you feel for 2 or 3 minutes. And we're, you know, but I remember the poor devil afterwards. I just kept laughing at the whole thing of, look at Ken, and all I could think of Mongolian beef. Like, how did he even arrive on that? Whatever about fillet beef, or do you know what I mean? But poor Cyril anyway. But we didn't. He made it anyway in the end, and he's still there. But it was just, I remember inside myself, he probably took the distraction of the whole seriousness of the meeting and picking the team of the year was that he was okay. But oh no, look, it was again.
Des, do you remember you saying Des actually thought he was a goner?
Yeah,
like
Des, I think Des might have joked and he said, Ken, what you have to do it? So, but no, it was one of the funniest moments, and there could have been something being discussed, and it's almost like, will you fish up there? What's going on? We're trying to pick a team here, you know? Like, geez, it was just, I suppose, such an unusual thing at such a moment that, and we'd been there a few times, you know, you knew what was coming on the Sunday night, and you'd be having that production meeting or whatever, like, but yeah, look, thank God we still have Cyril with us. Anyway, thank God.
Do Langtons do Mongolian beef?
I was going to say it, yeah.
Fellas, brilliant. It was good to do it in person. I always see Milan in his van and I get the sweats looking at you. Like there's heat coming off the thing.
Yeah.
Like when you're there in that van at minute 45, I just think, let him out.
Well, I'll tell you now, the Milan van will be kept going for the summer, won't he, Bernie?
He definitely stay going. I do have people on to me like wondering, like, what's the makeup with a van? Like, it looks like John is sitting in the middle where the handbrake should be. Like, what's the story? Like, you know, what did you say, Mull, to tell them what your job is and that kind of crack and what type of van it is?
Oh, I'm selling scrap.
Yes, man, selling scrap.
It'd make for some little cameo arriving into matches and Muller's van or something like that would be brilliant.
Could sell Mongolian beef, maybe.
Mongolian beef, yeah.
You couldn't get much hotter anyway.
Fellas, brilliant. Enjoy the hurling championship. It's going to be a great couple of months. John Milan,
Really looking forward to it.
pleasure.
Thanks,
Michael
Joe.
Verney, brilliant.
Cheers, Joe.
Eddie Brennan, super.
Cheers, Joe.
Thanks, fellas.